There's something haunting about the ruins of Bromjunaar, something that lingers in the air like the whisper of a long-dead language. Picture this, a scholar, Elyndra, standing amidst the cracked stone and howling wind, her fingers trembling as she unrolls an ancient map. The parchment is brittle, its edges frayed by time, but the markings are still clear, a path to a place forgotten by history. She's not just here to study the past. She's here to uncover the secrets of the dragon cults, to walk in the footsteps of the first dragon priests, and to listen for the echoes of voices that once spoke directly to the scaled rulers of the sky. And you're right there with her, stepping into the shadows of a world where worship and power were written in the bones of the earth. We'd love to know where you're joining us from tonight. Are you curled up somewhere cozy as the stars come out, or is the sun still high where you are? Let us know in the comments below, because this journey into the heart of Skyrim's deepest mysteries is one we're taking together. The dragon cults didn't just vanish. Their legacy is carved into the very stones of this land, hidden in cryptic symbols and whispered in the tongues of dragons. What drove these ancient worshippers to bow before creatures of such immense power? What rituals did they perform in the darkened halls of their temples, and what price did they pay for their devotion? The answers are waiting, buried beneath layers of myth and time. Elendra's torch flickers as she steps deeper into the ruins, her breath visible in the cold air. Every shadow seems to move with the weight of centuries, every gust of wind carrying fragments of a language only the dragons and their chosen priests could understand. This isn't just a story about the past, it's a key to understanding the forces that shape Skyrim itself. The dragon cults weren't just worshippers, they were keepers of secrets, wielders of power, and perhaps, in their darkest moments, victims of the very beings they revered. So settle in, because tonight, we're peeling back the layers of history to uncover the truth behind the cults, the priests, and the dragons who demanded their devotion. The ruins are waiting, the past is speaking, and you're about to hear it. The darkness swallows Elyndra whole as her torch gutters out, leaving only the ghostly afterimage of those carvings burned into her vision. Dragons twisting around their devoted, their mouths open in silent roars. The cold seeps through her gloves as she braces against the wall, the stone rough beneath her fingertips. Somewhere ahead, that faint glow pulses like a heartbeat, pulling her deeper into the ruin. She knows this isn't just some trick of the light. Bromjunaar has waited centuries for someone to listen. The inscriptions she'd studied in dusty tomes were always incomplete, riddled with gaps. But here the story is whole. The carvings tell of a pact written in fire and blood, of mortal voices raised not in fear, but in reverence. These worshippers didn't cower before the dragons. They sought them out, they chose this. Her boot scuffs against something brittle, scattered bones, their edges smoothed by time. Kneeling, she finds fragments of robes among them, threads still clinging to the remains. These weren't warriors, they were priests, their hands raised in supplication, even in death. The air hums with something older than the stones themselves, a resonance that makes her teeth ache. That glow ahead isn't torchlight, it's word light. The ancient Nords believed dragon language could shape reality, that a single syllable could bend the world to the speaker's will. And the cults, they didn't just worship that power, they hungered for it, a low, shuddering breath echoes through the chamber. Not hers. Elyndra freezes. The ruins were supposed to be empty, but the deeper she goes, the clearer it becomes. The past isn't dead here. It's coiled in the shadows, watching. Waiting, the glow brightens, revealing a doorway ahead, its arch carved with a single word she's only ever seen in fragments. Dava, dragon, not a warning. An invitation. The mural stretches across the crumbling wall, like a warning written in ash and faded pigment. Elendra's breath catches as her fingers hover just above the painted scene. The dragon's golden eyes seem to follow her, its wings spread wide as if ready to descend from the stone. Below it, a figure in ornate robes raises a dagger over a bound man, his face twisted not in fear, but rapture. The sacrifice isn't struggling, he's willing. The realization sends a shiver down her spine. This wasn't just murder, it was communion. Her notes crinkle as she flips through them, the name Morokei leaping from the pages like a whisper she wasn't meant to hear. The records spoke of him in fragments, a priest who walked between worlds, who traded his mortality for something darker. Some claimed he still wandered these halls, his voice woven into the drafts that moaned through the corridors. The air around her thickens, the cold pressing in like invisible hands. She's not alone. A sound, soft, deliberate, echoes from deeper in the ruin, not the skitter of rats or the shift of settling stone. Footsteps, too measured to be an echo of her own. Elendra's pulse thrums in her throat as she presses closer to the mural, her torchlight dancing over the painted dragon scales. The ritual depicted here wasn't just about death, it was about transformation. The cultists didn't just offer lives to the dragons, they offered themselves, their voices, their wills, their very souls, in exchange for a shred of that primordial power. And Morokei, he was one of the few who survived the exchange. The footsteps pause, silence hangs heavier than the cold, then a breath, slow and deliberate, from the darkness ahead. Not human, not quite. Elendra's fingers tighten around her journal. Every scholar of the dragon cults knows the stories, the priests who wore masks, not to hide their faces, but to become something else. The masks were more than symbols. They were vessels, conduits for the dragon's will, and Morokei's mask. It was said to still hum with the words of its master, whispering secrets to those brave, or foolish, enough to listen. The glow ahead wavers, casting long shadows that twist like living things. Something moves within them, not a shape, a presence. The ruins aren't just a tomb for the dead. They are a stage, set for a performance that never truly ended. The dragon priests didn't vanish. They lingered, bound to their duties long after their gods had fallen. And now, as Elendra's boot grinds against a fragment of bone, she understands the true cost of their devotion. The cults didn't worship dragons, they became them, or at least they tried. And in these halls, where the past refuses to die, the line between worshipper and worship blurs into something far more terrifying. A low, resonant chant curls through the corridor ahead, the words fractured yet unnervingly familiar, like half-remembered lines from a dream. Elyndra presses herself against the damp stone, her pulse hammering as the torchlight reveals the scene. Figures in tattered robes, their backs to her, kneeling in a loose circle. Their voices rise and fall in unison, weaving a rhythm that makes the air itself feel thick, sluggish. At the center, A leader lifts a rusted dagger, its edge catching the firelight as he recites phrases ripped straight from the mural's faded script. The sacrifice lies motionless on the altar, their face obscured by shadow, but the tension in their limbs suggests something far worse than fear: acceptance. Elendra's hand drifts to the journal at her belt, its pages crammed with warnings about the cult's resurgence, whispers of fools who dug too deep into Bromjunaar's secrets and found not answers, but invitations. These weren't just historians playing at reverence. They were repeating the rites, syllable for syllable, as if the dragons might still be listening. Her throat tightens. To retreat now would mean losing the only lead she's had in months, but a step forward. The altar's surface is dark with old stains, and the dagger's arc through the air is too practiced, too eager. A gust of wind snakes through the chamber, extinguishing two of the cultists' torches. The leader doesn't flinch. His voice grows louder, the chant twisting into a guttural rasp that doesn't sound human anymore. Elendra's breath fogs in the sudden chill. She's heard that tone before in the recordings of dragon priests' incantations, their voices warped by something behind the words. The ground beneath her boots vibrates faintly, as if the ruin itself is stirring. Then it happens. The bound figure on the altar lifts their head, and the firelight reveals not terror, but a smile. Wide, unnatural, Elendra's stomach lurches. This isn't a victim, it's a volunteer. The dagger descends not to kill, but to mark, and the first drop of blood hits the altar with a hiss. The sound is wrong, metallic, alive. The walls shudder in response, dust cascading from the ceiling as the carvings along the archway begin to glow, their outlines burning gold like embers, stirred back to life. The cultists don't cheer, they don't even move, they simply wait, their chant now a whisper, as the shadows behind the altar coil and thicken into something with weight, with shape. Elendra's fingers dig into the stone behind her. She'd come to study the past, not to witness its rebirth, but the choice isn't hers anymore. The ruin has decided. The air splits with a sound like tearing parchment, and the thing in the darkness opens its eyes. The stone clatters across the ancient floor, its echo sharp as a blade in the heavy silence. Then chaos erupts. Robes swirl like storm clouds as the cultists scatter, their chants fracturing into startled gasps. Elyndra doesn't hesitate, her fingers close around the dagger's hilt, its metal unnaturally warm against her skin, the dragon tongue etchings pulsing faintly under her touch. She's running before the first cry rings out, her boots slipping on loose debris as she plunges deeper into the ruin's throat. Behind her, the cultists' voices twist, splintering into something jagged and wrong. Not just anger, not just fear, but a dissonant chorus of syllables that claw at her ears. The words aren't theirs anymore. Something older, hungrier, is speaking through them. The corridor narrows, walls pressing in like the ribs of some long-dead beast. Elendra's torch gutters wildly, casting frantic shadows that leap ahead of her, revealing glimpses of carvings she doesn't have time to decipher. Dragons coiled around kneeling figures, mouths open not to devour, but to bless. The dagger thrums in her grip, its weight all wrong, as if it's pulling her forward rather than being carried. A shriek ricochets off the stones, too shrill to be human, and she risks a glance back. The cultists aren't chasing her. They're writhing, their bodies jerking like puppets, tangled in their own strings. One collapses to his knees, head snapping up to reveal eyes flooded with molten gold. She rounds a corner and nearly stumbles into a yawning pit, a collapsed section of floor, the darkness below swallowing the torchlight whole. No time to find another path. The voices behind her are closer now, layered with whispers that don't match the movement of their lips. Elyndra leaps, her cloak snapping like a wing as she clears the gap, landing hard on the other side. The impact sends a jolt up her spine, but she's already moving, her free hand skimming the wall for balance. The stone is slick here, not with moisture, but with something thicker, darker. Old blood, the realization hits her like a gust of frigid air. This isn't just a ruin, it's a threshold. A new sound cuts through the cacophony, a low, resonant hum, like a plucked string, vibrating in the hollow of the earth. The dagger's etchings flare brighter, searing lines of light into her vision. Elendra's breath catches. She's seen this before, in the margins of crumbling scrolls, the moment a relic remembers its purpose. The cultists' footsteps falter behind her, their distorted voices fraying into static. They know what's coming. They fear it. Ahead, the corridor dead ends into a massive door, its surface carved with a single, looping word, Croesus. Sorrow, not a name, a warning. The first cultist reaches the pit's edge, just as Elendra's palm slams against the door. The dagger's light licks up her arm, threading through her veins like liquid fire. Behind her, the golden-eyed man opens his mouth, and the sound that tears free isn't a scream. It's a word, one that cracks the air like thunder, shaking dust from the ceiling. The door groans in response, its ancient mechanisms grinding to life. Elyndra doesn't look back. She knows what she'll see. Not men, not anymore, but vessels straining at the seams, their flesh alight with borrowed power. The last thing she hears before the door seals shut is the wet, splitting sound of masks, forming not over their faces, but from them, bone reshaping itself into something meant to last forever. The door groans open with the weight of centuries, its stone jaws parting to exhale air so stale it tastes of dust and old bones. Elendra's pulse thrums in her ears as she steps into the chamber, the dagger's warmth fading in her grip, its purpose served. The room is a perfect sphere, its walls carved with spiraling script that glows faintly, like embers cooling in a hearth. At its center, the skeletal priest sits, slumped against his staff, its blue light painting his hollow sockets with an eerie luminance. The whispers coil around her, no longer distant murmurs but distinct syllables, layered and overlapping voices caught in an endless chant. Closer now, she sees the details that make her breath hitch. The priest's robes, once fine, are threaded with veins of gold that still shimmer despite the ages. His spine is arched not in defeat, but in the posture of one mid-prayer. And the staff, its light isn't steady. It breathes, pulsing in time with the whispers, as if the very air is alive with the priest's unfinished invocation. The carvings on the walls aren't mere decoration. They're a record, a chronicle of the cult's final days. Dragons in flight, their wings clipped by spears. Priests kneeling not in worship, but in supplication, their masks shattered at their feet. This isn't a tomb, it's a confession. Elendra's fingers hover above the staff, close enough to feel the static prickle of its energy. The moment she touches it, the whispers crystallize into a single, searing word. Valak, Guardian. The name strikes her like a physical blow. This priest wasn't just another acolyte. He was the jailer, the one who sealed away the cult's darkest secrets when their ambition outstripped their devotion. The blue light flares, and suddenly, the chamber isn't empty anymore. Ghostly figures flicker at the edges of her vision, priests in panicked flight, their robes singed by dragonfire, their voices raw with betrayal. One collapses at the skeletal priest's feet, clutching a mask that writhes in his hands like a living thing. They promised us power, the specter rasps, but the words were never ours to wield. Then silence, the vision shatters, leaving only the skeletal priest and his staff, its light dimmer now, as if drained by the memory. Elyndra staggers back, her mind reeling. The cults hadn't just fallen to outside forces. They'd torn themselves apart from within, their hunger for the dragon's power, twisting into something even the dragons couldn't control. And this priest, he'd chosen to bury the truth here, to die with it rather than let it poison the world above. A faint click echoes through the chamber. The staff's light gutters, and the skeletal fingers around it crumble to dust at last, releasing their grip. As the blue glow fades, something else takes its place. A new whisper, softer than the others, slipping from the priest's gaping jaw. Not a word, a name, Morokei's, and with it, a direction. North, toward the ice-choked peaks, where the last of the dragon priest still waits. Dreaming of the day, his voice will shake the world awake once more. Elyndra's fingers brush the staff, and the world dissolves. The skeletal hand lunges, its grip like ice and iron, locking around her wrist. A scream dies in her throat as the visions crash over her, relentless as a tidal wave. Dragons blot out the sun, their wings casting shadows that swallow entire cities. Windhelm burns, its stone towers crumbling like sandcastles beneath a guttural roar that isn't just sound, it's language, syllables that crack the earth. And there, amidst the chaos, a figure stands atop a ziggurat of bones, his mask gleaming like polished obsidian. Morokei. His arms are raised, his chant syncopated with the dragon's cries, each word sending tremors through the ground. The air shimmers around him, thick with the scent of ozone and old blood. This isn't memory, it's prophecy. The skeletal priest's jaw creaks open, releasing a whisper that slithers into Elyndra's ears. You see the truth now. The dragons will rise again, and you could stand with them. The voice isn't his, it's layered, countless tongues woven together, some human, some something else. Elyndra jerks backward, but the grip tightens, her skin burning where bone meets flesh. The visions shift. She's no longer watching Morokei. She is him, the mask's weight pressing into her face, its edges fusing with her skin. Power thrums through her veins, intoxicating and terrible. The dragon's voice coiled in her throat like a second heartbeat. She could utter a single word, and the world would bend. Then pain, white hot and sudden, lancing up her arm. The skeletal fingers crumble to dust, the connection snapping like a frayed rope. Elyndra stumbles back, gasping, her wrist scored with jagged runes that weren't there before. The whispers don't stop. They curl around her thoughts, sweet as poisoned honey. You felt it. That power could be yours. No more digging through ruins for scraps of knowledge. No more begging for answers. You could command them. The staff rolls toward her, its blue light flaring in invitation. Somewhere deep in the ruin, stone grinds against stone. A door opening, or perhaps a tomb. The whispers rise to a crescendo, threading through her doubts. her ambitions, the quiet hunger she's buried beneath years of scholarly detachment. Elyndra clenches her fists. The runes on her wrist pulse in time with the staff's glow, a rhythm that feels less like a warning and more like a countdown. The dragon cults didn't just crave power, they craved transcendence. And now, after centuries of silence, the ruins are offering her the same choice. Take the staff, speak the words, become something more or something less than human. The decision hangs in the air, heavier than the stale breath of the tomb. Outside, the wind howls through Bromjunaar's broken towers, carrying with it the distant, echoing cry of a hawk. Or perhaps, just for a moment, something older. Something waiting. The chamber erupts in a chorus of fractured voices as the cultists surge forward, their movements unnervingly synchronized. Their eyes burn with that same unnatural blue, not just light, but something alive, something watching from behind their pupils. Elyndra staggers back, the staff clutched tight against her chest. The carvings along its length pulse in time with the intruders chanting, as if recognizing kin. One word rises above the din, sharp as shattered glass. Return, not a request, a command woven into the very air. The ground shudders beneath her boots. Dust cascades from the ceiling as the skeletal priest's bones begin to reassemble themselves, drawn together by invisible threads of will. His hollow eye sockets fix on Elyndra, and the whispers in her mind twist into something new, not temptation now, but warning. Destroy the staff, and the voices might cease, but the secrets etched into its core, the truth of how the dragon cults bridge the gap between mortal and divine, would be lost forever. The cultists advance, their outstretched hands trembling with more than fervor. The blue light isn't just in their eyes anymore. It bleeds from their pores, cracks their skin like two bright veins. They are not just worshippers, they are conduits. A thunderous crack splits the air as the skeletal priest lurches upright, his spine straightening with a sound like grinding stone. His jaw unhinges, and the voice that spills forth isn't his alone. It's layered with the echoes of every priest who ever died holding this staff. Choose, it booms. The walls tremble, the cultists freeze mid-step, their heads snapping toward the sound with eerie precision. Elyndra's breath comes in ragged gasps. The runes on her wrist burn hotter, their lines flaring gold against her skin. She knows what they're saying now, the same word carved above the chamber's door. Crosis, sorrow, not for what was lost, for what's coming. The staff thrums in her grip, its light swelling to drown out the cultist's glow. Images flood her mind, not visions this time, but knowledge. The rituals weren't just about sacrifice, they were about exchange, a dragon's voice for a mortal's will. A priest's devotion for a shred of that endless, sky-rending power. And now, centuries later, the Pact still holds. The cultists aren't here to reclaim the staff. They are here to complete the transaction. The skeletal priest takes a jerking step forward, his bony fingers flexing. The cultists drop to their knees as one, their chanting rising to a fevered pitch. The air itself vibrates with the weight of unspoken words, the tension before a storm's first lightning strike. Elyndra tightens her grip. The staff could unravel history, or rewrite it. The ground shakes again, deeper this time, as if something far below has finally begun to stir. Elyndra swings the staff with all her strength, and for a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the air itself shudders, a deafening crack splits the ceiling, and the world dissolves into chaos. Stone rains down in jagged slabs, sealing the chamber behind her in a tomb of rubble. The cultist screams are swallowed by the roar of collapsing earth, but one sound cuts through the dust-choked air, the dry, relentless scrape of bone against stone. The priest is moving, free. She doesn't wait to see him rise. The hidden passage yawns before her, its mouth choked with cobwebs that tear like old parchment as she plunges into the dark. The staff's light flickers, casting frantic shadows that twist along the walls, not just guiding her, but pulling, as if the relic knows the way home. The whispers coil around her thoughts, no longer fragments but a river of voices, all murmuring the same word, Parthenax. The name thrums in her ribs like a second heartbeat. The throat of the world, where the last of the dragons still whispers to the wind. Her boots skid on loose stone as the tunnel steepens, the air growing thinner, colder. Behind her, the rubble shifts again, not the settling of debris, something digging, hunting. Elendra risks a glance back and regrets it instantly. The skeletal priest's fingers claw through the gap, his joints bending at impossible angles as he drags himself forward. His jaw hangs open, and the sound that spills out isn't speech. It's the echo of a dragon's roar, trapped in a dead man's throat. The staff's light flares, searing her palms as the tunnel walls narrow, forcing her to sidestep with her shoulders pressed to the stone. The whispers rise to a crescendo, not in warning, but in recognition. This isn't just an escape route. It's a pilgrim's path, worn smooth by centuries of devoted feet. The carvings here are different, not dragons dominating, but dragons teaching, their great heads bent close to upturned mortal faces. The cults didn't just worship. They learned, and now, as Elyndra bursts into the open air, the icy wind slapping her face like a rebuke, she understands why the staff led her here. The throat of the world looms above her, its peak hidden in swirling mist. Somewhere up there, the last true disciple of the dragon cult waits, not a prisoner, not a relic, a keeper of the old ways, who remembers when mortal and dragon shared not just words, but purpose. The staff's murmurs soften, almost reverent. Behind her, the tunnel mouth exhales a plume of dust. The priest is close. Elyndra tightens her grip and starts to climb. The mountain's silence is a living thing, thick with the weight of unspoken thumbs. And beneath her fingers, the ancient runes on the staff begin to glow anew, humming a song only the dragons remember. The first blast of wind nearly knocks Elyndra to her knees as she emerges from the tunnel's throat, the sudden daylight searing after hours in the dark. The staff's glow gutters like a dying candle, its whispers thinning to mere threads of sound, not silent, but withdrawing, as if conserving its strength. High Hrothgar's shadow stretches across the slope ahead, its 7,000 steps, hidden beneath layers of ice and myth. The monks there have guarded the way of the voice for eras. They could strip the staff's secrets bare with a single glance, or shatter it against the stones, severing the last thread, connecting this age to the dragon cult's forgotten bargains. Her fingers tighten around the relic. It's colder now, its pulse sluggish against her palm. The climb will take days, if the mountain allows it. Already, the snow stings her cheeks with the promise of storms to come. But the real danger isn't the cold, it's what follows. The cultists will regroup. The skeletal priest no, she can't think of him as just bones and a more. Not after what she saw in those visions, he will track her. The runes on her wrist throb faintly, a reminder that the connection between them isn't broken, just stretched. And then there are the dreams. Every time she closes her eyes, she's back in that collapsing chamber, watching the priest rise with his borrowed voice. Worse are the moments when she is him, the mask's weight fusing to her face, the dragon's tongue coiling in her throat like a living thing. She wakes gasping, her mouth tasting of char and copper, her hands clutching at a staff that isn't there. The monks might call it possession, the scholars would label it hallucination. Elyndra knows better. The past isn't haunting her, it's testing her. A distant screech splits the sky, a hawk or something far older. The staff twitches in her grip, its light flaring once, briefly, before dimming again. The message is clear enough. The mountain is watching, and time, like the path ahead, is anything but certain. She adjusts her pack, the weight of provisions and doubt uneven on her shoulders. The first step is always the hardest. The snow crunches underfoot, the sound swallowed almost instantly by the wind. Somewhere below, in the ruins she's left behind, stone grinds against stone. The priest is moving, but so is she, and the throat of the world has always listened for footsteps like hers, the kind that walk the line between seeking and surrender. The wind howls through High Hrothgar's ancient arches, carrying with it the scent of frost and old parchment. Elendra's breath fogs the air as she stands before the Greybeards, the staff heavy in her trembling hands. Their faces are unreadable beneath their hoods, but the weight of their silence presses down like the mountain itself. Master Arngeir steps forward, his voice a low rumble that seems to vibrate through the stone beneath their feet. You carry a relic of the dragon cult's deepest heresy, he says, his gaze locked on the staff's pulsing core. This is no mere artifact. It is a bridge forged to channel the voice of the first dragonborn into mortal hands. Elendra's fingers tighten around the staff. She expected awe, perhaps even reverence. Not this, dread. The Greybeards' robes ripple as they exchange glances, their unspoken words hanging thick in the air. Arngeir extends a gnarled hand. The magic within is a storm waiting to break. Let us seal it away, where none may wield its power again. His tone leaves no room for debate. But Elyndra doesn't move. The staff thrums against her palm, its whispers threading through her thoughts like roots through cracked earth. What if locking it away isn't the answer? She thinks of the skeletal priest clawing through the ruins, of the cultists' hollowed eyes blazing with borrowed light. This isn't just about power, it's about hunger. A hunger that won't die with the staff's imprisonment. And if they find another way, she counters, her voice steadier than she feels. The cults didn't just vanish. They are still searching, still listening. If we bury this, we're not stopping them. We're just leaving ourselves blind. Arngeir's brow furrows. For the first time, something flickers in his eyes, not doubt, but recognition. He knows she's right. The dragon cult's legacy isn't locked in ruins or relics. It's in the whispers that still coil through Skyrim's valleys, in the way the very air trembles when Adava shouts. The staff is a key, yes, but keys can be remade. The fire in the hearth gutters, casting long shadows that dance across the stone walls like restless spirits. Elendra's resolve hardens. Teach me, she says, the words leaving her lips before she can second-guess them. not to use it, to understand it. If the cults are rising again, we need to know what they're chasing and why. Arnger exhales, his breath stirring the embers. The other greybeards remain motionless, their silence a language of its own. Finally, he nods, once, sharp as a blade's fall. The path you walk is steep and darker than you know, he murmurs, but the voice has chosen to speak through you. We will not turn it away. The staff's glow intensifies, as if in answer. Elendra's chest tightens. This isn't victory. It's the first step into a storm she can't yet see. And somewhere, far below the mountain's snow-clad shoulders, the earth shifts, not in protest, but in anticipation. The dream begins in fire, not the burning kind, but the liquid gold of a dragon's gaze pinning her in place. Perched atop the throat of the world, its scales shimmer like polished obsidian under the aurora's glow. Elyndra knows this isn't just a dream. The air hums with the same pressure as before a thunderclap, and when the creature parts its jaws, her name isn't spoken. Its unmade syllables cracking the dreamscape like glass. Elyndra. The voice isn't Morokei's. It's older, hungrier. The word lingers, searing itself into her bones, and then she jerks awake, her throat raw as if she's been screaming. The Greybeard's guest chamber is ice cold, the hearth long dead, but the staff isn't where she left it. It hovers inches from her cot, its glow pulsing in time with her frantic heartbeat. The wards etched into the doorframe, intricate swirls of Nordic script, meant to repel malice are blackened, their power drained like blood from a wound. Her fingers graze the staff's shaft, and the visions come unbidden. A cavern deep beneath Bromjunaar, its walls slick with condensation that isn't water but breath, the exhalations of something massive shifting in the dark. The cultists kneel there now, their chants syncopated with the drip of melting ice. They aren't summoning, they're listening, and the thing in the cavern. It's answering. The staff's light flares, casting jagged shadows across the ceiling. Elendra's skin prickles. The Greybeards had warned her. Some bonds can't be severed, only stretched thin. The cult's reach isn't just long. It's anchored, its roots sunk deep into places even the voice hasn't touched. Outside, the wind howls through High Hrothgar's arches, carrying the faintest echo of wingbeats. Or perhaps it's just the mountain itself, sighing beneath the weight of what's coming. The staff tilts toward the window, its glow intensifying as if drawn to the horizon. Dawn is still hours away, but the sky there, it shimmers, not with stars, with something stirring beneath the fabric of the world. Elendra's breath fogs the air as she grips the relic tighter. The dream wasn't a warning, it was an invitation, and the dragon atop the throat of the world, it wasn't looking at her, it was looking through her, past flesh, past fear, to the part of her that already knows the first word of its name. Arnger's hands hover over the staff, his palms not quite touching its glowing surface. The air between them hums with restrained power, like the moment before a lightning strike. This relic does not sleep, he murmurs, his voice weighted with something deeper than caution. It waits, and now, after centuries of silence, it has begun to call. The firelight catches the edges of his hood, casting shadows that make his frown seem carved from stone. There is a prophecy, older than High Hrothgar itself. When the staff stirs, so too does its master. Not the one who wields it, but the one who forged it, the priest who first bound dragon fire to mortal hands. Elendra's grip tightens reflexively. The runes on her wrist pulse in response, their golden light seeping through her sleeve. She thinks of the skeletal priest, clawing through the ruins, of the way his voice had fractured into something monstrous. Morokei, she breathes. Arnger's gaze sharpens. You have seen him. It isn't a question. The admission hangs between them, thick as mountain fog. She had thought the priest a remnant, a ghost clinging to the ruins. But the staff's whispers tell a different story. Every time she touches it, the visions come sharper, clearer. Morokei's mask reforming from shadow, his voice threading through her dreams like a needle through flesh. The Greybeards exchange glances, their silence more damning than any warning. They've known, all this time, they've known. The cults believe their priests ascended. Arnger continues, his voice low. That by wearing the masks, they became something beyond mortal. But the truth is far darker. The masks weren't vessels for divinity. They were anchors, chains tethering their souls to this world, long after their bodies turned to dust. He steps closer, the firelight etching lines of worry into his face. And now, with the staff awakened, the chain is pulling taut. Elendra's stomach twists. Her fingers trace the staff's carvings, not random patterns. She realizes now, but names, dragon names, and at the very top, worn smooth by centuries of desperate hands, Morokei. The realization crashes over her like ice water. She hadn't just stumbled upon the staff. It had called to her, led her through the ruins like a compass needle, finding north. And in doing so, she'd done exactly what it wanted. She'd wrenched it free from its tomb, breaking the seals that kept its master dormant. The weight of the choice settles over her shoulders, heavier than any pack. Surrender the staff to the Greybeards. Let them bury it beneath layers of warding and watchful silence. Or her thumb brushes Morokei's name. Carry it to him herself. Not as a supplicant, as a challenger, the staff thrums in her grip, its light flaring as if in approval. Outside, the wind screams against the monastery's ancient stones. Somewhere in the darkness beneath Skyrim, something answers. The descent from High Hrothgar is nothing like the climb. The mountain doesn't release its guests gently. It hurls them back into the world with biting winds and sleet that stings like needles. Elendra's cloak whips around her, the staff strapped to her back, humming against her spine, its pulse syncing with her own heartbeat in a rhythm that feels less like companionship and more like a countdown. The Greybeards' warnings coil in her mind like smoke. Labyrinthian isn't just a ruin, it's a mouth, and Morokei, he's the teeth. The roads twist unnaturally beneath her boots, as if the land itself is recoiling from her destination. Farmsteads, she swears, were there yesterday, lie abandoned, their doors hanging open like gasps. The few travelers she meets avoid her eyes, their shoulders hunched against more than the cold. One old woman, her face lined with years and something darker, presses a talisman into Elendra's palm without a word, a twisted knot of iron and bone, still warm from her grip. The meaning is clear, turn back, but the staff's whispers drown out the thought before it can take root. By the time the ruins appear on the horizon, the sky has turned the color of a bruise. Labyrinthians' broken spires claw at the clouds, their silhouettes jagged against the storm light. The air here is thick, tasting of wet stone and something metallic, old blood, or perhaps the iron scent of lightning about to strike. Elendra's fingers brush the staff, and for the first time, it doesn't respond. It's listening, not to her, to the voices rising from the ruins ahead, chanting in a language that makes her temples throb. The cultists don't bother hiding anymore. They line the crumbling archway, their hoods thrown back, their faces lit by the same eerie blue glow she saw in Bromjunaar. But their eyes are wrong, pupils slit like a cat's, irises bleeding gold at the edges. They don't speak as she approaches. They don't need to. The staff thrums against her back, its energy licking up her ribs like a flame seeking kindling. The cultists step aside as one, their movements too synchronized to be human. The path ahead yawns open, leading into the labyrinth's heart. A gust of wind snatches the breath from her lungs, carrying with it a sound that isn't wind at all. A voice, deep as a landslide, vibrating through the stones beneath her feet. Little scholar, the words aren't spoken aloud. They're etched directly into her skull, each syllable leaving a searing mark. You've brought me my key. Elendra's hand flies to the staff, but it's no longer cold. It's burning. The runes on her wrist blaze to life, their light cutting through the gathering dark. The cultists' chanting swells, their voices weaving into a crescendo that shakes the ruins. Somewhere deep in the labyrinth, stone grinds against stone. Something is waking, and the staff in her hands, it's not just a relic anymore. It's a beacon, and it's calling its master home. The air in Labyrinthion's central chamber doesn't move, it pulses, thick with the scent of ozone and old rot. Elendra's torch gutters as she steps forward, the staff's glow painting the walls in shifting hues of blue and gold. The carvings here aren't like the others. They don't depict dragons ruling or priests kneeling. They show something far more intimate. Mouths pressed to ears, hands clasped around throats, breath exchanged like vows. A communion, a transaction. Morokei's voice slithers from the shadows before his form materializes, the edges of his spectral robe fraying into the dark like smoke. You've come far, scholar, he murmurs, the words vibrating through her ribs as if her bones are tuning forks. His mask, polished bone, etched with runes that squirm under her gaze, tilts slightly. But not for answers, for confirmation. The staff trembles in her grip, its light flaring toward him like a compass needle, finding north. He doesn't threaten. Doesn't demand. He offers, a flick of his wrist, and the chamber dissolves into a vision of swirling stars, of cities built from syllables, of a Skyrim where the thumb doesn't just shape the world, it is the world. The dragons are returning, he whispers, and when they do, the voice will be the only currency that matters. With the staff, you could be more than a historian. You could be a conduit. His skeletal fingers extend, not to take the staff, but to brush the runes on her wrist, the ones still burning from the skeletal priest's grip. The knowledge you crave is yours. All I ask is your loyalty when the time comes. The moment stretches, thin as ice over a chasm. Elendra's fingers tighten around the staff. She thinks of the Greybeards' warnings, of the way the cultists' eyes had bled gold, of the thing in Bromjunaar's cavern that wasn't quite a dragon, but wasn't not one either. The price isn't just her allegiance. It's her voice, the right to speak her own truths. She steps back. No, the vision shatters. Morokei's mask contorts not in anger, but something worse. Amusement. Then let us see how well you wield knowledge without power. His form blurs, and the ruins writhe. Skeletons tear free from the walls, their bones knit together by strands of crackling blue energy. The staff shrieks in her hands, its light stuttering like a dying star. Elyndra doesn't run, she listens. The staff's panic isn't random. It's a pattern, a rhythm that matches the cadence of the skeleton's movements. Morokei hasn't just mastered time, he's bound it, woven it into the ruins like thread through a tapestry. But threads can unravel. She ducks a skeletal claw and presses her palm to the staff's core. Not to wield it, to answer it. The first word that tears from her throat isn't a shout, it's a whisper, the same syllable etched above Bromjunaar's sealed door. Crosis, sorrow, the skeletons freeze. For a heartbeat, the chamber is silent. Then the staff's light erupts, not in defiance, but in recognition. The runes on Elendra's wrist blaze gold, and the air itself seems to fracture, revealing glimpses of other moments, other choices. 1,000 paths where she said yes, 1,000 ruins where she didn't walk away. Morokei's laughter is the last thing she hears before the world snaps back into place. Clever, he concedes, his voice already fading. But the game isn't over, it's just begun. The skeletons crumble, the staff falls silent, and Elyndra. She's left standing in the ruins, her breath ragged, her hands steady. The past isn't done with her yet, but for the first time, she knows. It's not the only one who gets to speak. The staff arcs through the air, its glow so bright, it leaves after images on Elendra's eyelids, then shatters against the altar with a sound like breaking glass and snapping bone. For a heartbeat, nothing happens, then the shockwave hits. Stone cracks beneath her feet as the blast ripples outward, silencing the whispers mid-chant. The cultist's glowing eyes flicker like candle flames in a gale before winking out entirely. Morokei's spectral form convulses, his robes shredding into tatters of shadow. His mask fractures down the middle, revealing not bone beneath, but a yawning void, a darkness that screams. You think this ends here? His voice isn't just in her ears anymore. It's in her teeth, her marrow, vibrating through her like the aftershock of a tolling bell. The dragons are waking, little scholar, and when they do, they'll remember who stood against them. The last word twists into a howl as his body unravels, strands of blue light peeling away like burning parchment. But the true horror isn't his dissolution, it's what's left behind. The altar's surface, where the staff's fragments lie scattered, isn't stone at all. Its scales, black and iridescent, flexing as if something vast stirs beneath. The realization chokes her. This was never just a ruin. It's a nest. The ceiling groans. Dust cascades from above as the first massive block plummets, smashing the altar into rubble. Elyndra stumbles back, her boots slipping on loose debris. The walls shudder, their carvings blurring as the entire chamber begins to fold in on itself. She doesn't look back. She can't, because beneath the roar of collapsing stone, another sound rises. A wet, rhythmic scraping, like claws testing the edges of a too small prison. The tunnel ahead narrows, its walls weeping rivulets of black sludge that sizzles where it touches her cloak. The air reeks of lightning and spoiled meat. She doesn't need the staff's whispers to know the truth now. Morokei was right. This was never just about the past. It was about what's coming. And as the last of the daylight sears her retinas upon bursting free of the ruins, one thought drowns out all others. The dragons won't need masks to speak through this time. Their voices will be their own, and Skyrim isn't ready to hear them. Dust coats Elendra's tongue as she drags herself from the wreckage, each breath scraping like gravel in her lungs. The ruins of Labyrinthian groan behind her, slabs of ancient stone settling like the bones of a fallen giant. Her fingers brush against something jagged, a shard of the staff, its surface now charred and lifeless. The runes that once pulsed with stolen power lie dormant, their edges blackened as if burned from within. Yet when she tilts her face to the sky, blinking against the sudden glare of the sun, the chill down her spine has nothing to do with the cold. A shadow flickers across the light, vast and swift. They're then gone. The air hums in its wake, vibrating with a frequency that makes her teeth ache. Not a bird. Not a cloud, something older. The cultists had whispered of dragons returning, but this isn't the triumphant resurgence they envisioned. This is something quieter. Something hungry. Her boot crunches on a fragment of Morokei's mask, its hollow eye sockets staring up at her. The cracks spider webbing across its surface don't look like damage. They look like hatch lines. Elendra's stomach knots. She'd thought destroying the staff would sever the cult's connection to the past, but history isn't a thread to be cut. It's a river, and she's just stirred the depths. The wind shifts, carrying with it a scent that doesn't belong in the crisp mountain air. Smoldering embers and wet stone, the breath of a creature that hasn't needed to breathe for eras. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a peak that wasn't there yesterday cuts into the sky. The throat of the world hasn't grown. Something has awakened beside it. Elyndra flexes her fingers, the ghost of the staff's weight still lingering in her palm. The cult's legacy was never in their relics or their rituals. It was in the silence between the words they stole, in the spaces where the dragon's voices never truly faded. And now, as the sun dips below the ridge, painting the snow in shades of blood and gold, she understands the terrible truth. Breaking the staff didn't end the story. It turned the page. The flames lick at the edges of Elendra's journal, the pages curling inward like dying leaves as the ink bleeds into smoke. Each sketch of Bromjunaar's carvings, each transcript of the staff's whispers, blackens and dissolves, erasing the trail she'd bled to follow. The embers scatter in the wind, carrying fragments of dragon tongue runes and half-remembered prophecies into the dark. For a moment, there's nothing but the crackle of burning parchment and the weight of her own breath. Then the shadows behind her move. A boot crunches on frost-brittle grass. Elendra spins, her dagger already in hand, but the stranger doesn't flinch. His hood casts his face in darkness, save for the glint of eyes like banked fire, not glowing, not possessed, but knowing, the kind of gaze that settles over her like a physical touch, peeling back layers of pretense to the raw choice beneath. "You've seen the truth," he murmurs, his voice rough as wind over stone. "Not the lies the Greybeards tell, nor the fairy tales the bards sing. The real cost of standing against what's coming." Her fingers tighten around the dagger. She expects a cultist's fervor, a fanatic's plea, but the man's outstretched hand is empty, his stance loose, almost weary. "You think burning your notes will protect them?" A nod toward the dying fire. "The dragons won't ask for permission to return, and when they do, the world will need more than monks muttering on mountaintops. It'll need fighters, survivors, people who have looked into the dark and didn't blink. The last page of her journal blackens, the sketch of Morokei's fractured mask vanishing in a swirl of sparks. Elendra's pulse thrums not in fear, but recognition. This isn't a recruitment, it's a test. The stranger isn't offering power, he's offering a place among those who have learned the hardest lesson of all, that some secrets aren't meant to be buried. They are meant to be wielded. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of snow and something sharper. Charcoal, maybe, or the iron tang of a storm brewing on the horizon. The stranger doesn't press. He simply waits, his hands still open, his eyes reflecting the embers at their feet. The choice isn't between right and wrong. It's between hiding and acting, and as the fire gutters out, Elyndra realizes the truth. Walking away won't save anyone, not even herself. The wind howls through the pines, carrying the scent of distant storms and something older, ash perhaps, or the metallic tang of lightning yet to strike. Elendra's fingers tighten around the edge of her cloak, the fabric rough against her skin, grounding her. The stranger's offer lingers in the air between them, weighty as the ruins at her back. She thinks of the skeletal priest's hollow laughter, of the way the staff's light had pulsed like a second heartbeat in her hands. The dragon cults hadn't just worshipped power. They'd bargained for it, trading pieces of themselves for a voice in the coming storm. And now, the storm is here. Her breath fogs in the cold as she studies the stranger's outstretched hand. Not a cultist's fervor, not a greybeard's restraint, something in between, a path carved by those who have learned the hardest truth, that knowledge without action is just another kind of burial. The shadows at the edges of her vision twist, not with menace, but possibility. The dragons won't ask for permission to return. They'll rise, and the world will split between those who kneel and those who meet their gaze. Elyndra exhales, long and slow. The journal's ashes stir at her feet, its secrets now carried on the wind. She doesn't need notes to remember the cost of hesitation, the way Morokei's voice had slithered into her thoughts, promising power in exchange for surrender. But the stranger isn't offering empty glory. He's offering a choice, to stand where others falter, to wield what others fear. The first snowflakes of the season brush her cheeks, melting instantly. A reminder, winter comes whether you're ready or not. She steps forward, her boots crunching on frost-hardened earth, not toward the stranger's hand, but past it, toward the horizon where the mountains bite the sky. Her voice, when it comes, is steady. I'll walk my own path. No defiance, no plea, just a fact, simple as stone. The stranger's lips curve, not in disappointment, but something like respect. He dips his head, a shadow among shadows, and vanishes into the gathering dark. The wind rises, carrying with it the faintest echo of wing beats. Elyndra doesn't turn to look. She knows what's coming, and this time, she won't just listen, she'll answer.